In the previous videos on this subject, we described all the animals of the Deccan and the different personality types, reconciliative, etc. And I showed you how to interpret all the balances of reconciliation versus retribution and predator versus prey. Today, I'm going to show you how to specifically interpret various planets in various types of Deccans. First of all, let's start with planets that are in predatorial Deccans. What I recommend you do first, and what my report on the Deccan does for you first, is get an overview of the predatorial Deccans that are active in your chart. Tally the planets that are in each particular type of predator divisions. This particular example has 3 planets in warrior Deccans, 2 planets in vulture Deccans, and no planets in any other predatorial Deccans except for the bird. That's 1 planet, Saturn, in a bird Deccan. This tally gives you a basic sense of which predatorial animals are active in you. I just want to flash some information on the screen about an extra step that I do in my report to try to account for the fact that there aren't an equal number of each particular type of animal. Whether you follow this elaborate step or you just make a simple percentage, you come up with a bar like this. This is how my report expresses it to you about your special combat powers that are represented by these special Deccan animals. So this person is 45% warrior, 36% vulture, and 19% bird. In their attack dynamics, that sort of explains itself. That's the beauty of having these symbolisms in the first place. But to make sure that it's clear and that everybody's on the same page, I also give you text in the report to flesh it out. The battle-ready warrior carries weapons and is armored, and therefore they are prepared for battle, and it's difficult to injure them. The swooping vulture identifies a weak point and ruthlessly attacks it. The bird comes in from a high vantage point, expertly attacks a particular thing, and then gets out of there before it can get any damage. This section of the report also takes one further step towards getting more specific. It shows you the particular planets that are in each particular type of Deccan. So this person's warrior nature applies to their Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, whereas their vulture nature is how they operate with the Sun and Mars. And the bird nature is how their Saturn operates. So I will definitely flesh that out for you in this video in more detail. That's what the main bulk of the video is going to be about. Before going there, it's just interesting to put a face on these numbers. Like, let's look at Mussolini and Hitler again. Mussolini's got a lot of animals. 4 animals. Vulture is his primary one. Serpent is next. Actually, equally, right? And then wolf, really important one that you'll see in politicians. And warrior is in there too, but not as dominant as these other ones. Adolf Hitler is dominantly the wolf. And surely he's more of the politician than Mussolini. Neck and neck with wolf, Hitler has the warrior. And then also he's got crocodile, very significant. Now let's get to the main event and talk about interpreting the specific planets in these specific types of Deccans. Let's start by looking at planets that are in predator Deccans, and then we'll move on to looking at planets that are in prey Deccans. Let's start with this example of Saturn in the bird, which is the last Deccan of Taurus. I'll show you what interpretations my report gives you, and I'll explain how it comes up with those interpretations. So first of all, you'll see a basic keyword about the planet itself. In this case for Saturn, it's mercilessness, because this is the implication or function of Saturn, specifically in the Treka. In other words, what does Saturn mean in the context of combat? In the context of combat, Saturn means mercilessness, which means like never relenting, unrelentingness. Then we can flesh that keyword out more depending upon the other factors that this Saturn is in. So in this case, it gets expanded to say unrelenting tenacity, preventing opponents from escaping when they are weak. That's mercilessness. Well, why is it given such a positive spin? Because this particular Saturn is in its own Dracan. So it has very high dignity. So we put a positive spin on how we flesh out the concept of merciless tenacity. Next, it says best used to attack like a flying bird to preemptively neutralize threats. Let's pull this apart because there's a lot of information tucked away in this. First of all, just the phrase best used is talking about this unrelenting, merciless tenacity. This unrelenting, merciless tenacity is used well, and it would be best used in this particular way. The reason why it's put in that positive way again is because this particular Saturn has positive dignity in this particular example. Best used to attack like a flying bird, that's because it's a bird Dracan. Saturn is in the bird Dracan. So bird Dracan symbolizes having precision, suddenness, and the ability to escape. It's like coming in, hitting something very exactly, and then getting out of there. The unrelenting tenacity is best used in that way. Just keep doing that. It's not an unrelenting tenacity like a wolf where you would gang up on something in a pack and always keep the pressure on. It's specifically unrelenting tenacity like a bird. And then the final bit is to preemptively neutralize threats. The reason why this is said is because the nature of Saturn's Dracan in this example is neutral. It's neither reconciliatory nor retributional. So it likes to neutralize the threat. Yet it's a neutralizing predator Dracan, not a neutralizing prey Dracan. So it's aggressively neutralizing. What does this really mean, this whole thing taken together? It means this person has really good in using unrelenting tenacity to prevent their opponents from escaping, before they're fully defeated. And the unrelenting tenacity is to continue to attack like a bird, flying in, attacking a point, and getting out. Not getting entangled in it and not wasting a lot of energy doing other things. Just attacking exact spots. And for what purpose? It's to destroy the strengths of the opponents so that they can't be used against. That's the preemptive neutralization. The more examples we look at, the more it will become clear. So let's look at them all. The next planet that this example chart has in a predator Dracan is the Sun. So first of all, the report gives you the keyword of dominance. In other words, what role does the Sun play in how you deal with conflicts? It's dominance or superiority, high self-confidence, and confidence in those who invested you with your authority. The sense of dominance or superiority is given a very positive twist here, again, because the Sun is in a very high dignity here in this particular Dracan. It's in its own Dracan. So one of the things that makes this person effective in combat, and it doesn't just mean physical combat, it's any kind of combat, is their strong sense of superiority. And the reason why they have a strong sense of superiority is because of their confidence in their own capacity, and specifically in the value and authority of the people who have empowered you. The report also says that this trait is best used to attack like a swooping vulture, to punish an attack. So again, it's best used because it's high dignity, and then it attacks like a swooping vulture because the first Dracan of Leo is a vulture Dracan. So vultures wait for the weak point, and when the opponent is weak, then they hammer on that weak point. They fully exploit the weak point. So that is what the Sun's confidence and superiority is most effectively directed towards, or how it should be utilized for this particular chart. The purpose of this is explained at the end of this statement. Best used to attack like a swooping vulture, to punishingly attack. So it's for punishing. You should not have done this. Again, the more we look at, the more it'll become clear. The whole system will become more clear. So let's go on and look at Mars. Mars basically means force in the Dracan, especially how you use strength, how you use force. Now here it's fleshed out simply as might, power, strength, ambition, bravery, and courage. It doesn't really have a positive or a negative spin on it. That's because it's in middle dignity in this particular chart. Mars is in the Sun's Dracan, which it's friendly with, but it's very close to the Sun, so it's just in a neutral relationship with the Sun. So the text below it says, you're trying to attack like a swooping vulture to punish and attack. It says trying to, not best used, because it's got a neutral dignity. So you try to use this technique, but it doesn't always work. The way you try to use it is like a vulture again. When you see the other person is weak on something, then you use your superior strength on it. And it's for the purpose of punishment. You shouldn't have done this, and I'll correct this. This example chart also has Mercury in a aggressive or predatorial Dracan. So let's take a look at that interpretation. Mercury's symbolism in the Dracan, or in other words, Mercury's symbolism relevant to combat, is basically negotiation. It could also have to do with dexterity or even politics and teamwork, but mostly it's about your ability to negotiate, because that's also really at the heart of politics and teamwork and is like the ideological version of dexterity. So look at the way that the report has fleshed out the term of negotiation in this case. It says tactlessness and insult and naively expecting honesty and fairness from others. Why did this get such a negative spin? It's because Mercury in this example is not in positive Dracan dignity. It's in Mars's Dracan, and Mars is its enemy. So this is indicating where a person is screwing up their battles. The planets that have negative dignity in your Dracan show where you mess up in your fights and where you mess up in your battles. How does this person mess up? By being needlessly tactless, or insulting, in other words. And another thing is by expecting people to negotiate. By expecting that they're on the same page as you about negotiation, by being naive about Mercury, just expecting that people are going to be fair. So it says this is most problematic when you're trying to attack like a battle-ready warrior to preemptively neutralize threats. So it gives you a lot more information and focused details about how this Mercury is getting used in this chart. It's the most problematic because it's low dignity. Causes problems the most when it's used as a warrior would use it, because it's in a warrior Dracan. So it means that there's too much intellect for the sake of defense, like using intellect for armor or using intellect like a weapon. And then the way it's used is it's in a neutral, it's not reconciliative, and it's not retributional. So it's trying to neutralize threats, but preemptively, because it's an aggressive Dracan. So it's like sticking your intellect into other people's business too much, into things that haven't even really become threats yet. But trying to neutralize something before it becomes a threat, it causes a problem of causing too much insult and destroying like friendships and partnerships. Or friendships and partnerships in combat might not be the right wording for it, but like destroying potential alliances. This example chart also has Venus in an aggressive Dracan. Let's also look at that, because the more we look at, the more clear the whole interpretation process will be for you. Venus's relevance to the Dracan, in other words, what does Venus mean in conflict? It's all about partnership, alliance. This gets fleshed out in the report as 2 sentences: cooperation with others, compelling others to join your side and support you. It's not particularly a positive or a negative spin on it, because Venus is in a neutral dignity in her Dracan. So because it has the mid-dignity to it, it says trying to attack like a battle-ready warrior to preemptively neutralize threats. So it's very similar to Mercury's situation. Trying to attack like a battle-ready warrior, like using partnerships and alliances for armor, it becomes too obviously self-serving. And again, like Mercury, it's preemptively neutralizing threats. You didn't need to try to make this alliance that's obviously just benefiting you, but you weren't really willing to wait and see if this threat actually takes action against you. So you jump the gun, and sometimes it works out in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. There's one more aggressive Dracon planet in this particular chart, and that's Jupiter. Jupiter has to do with integrity in the Dracon. What do I mean by integrity? Your moral integrity about how you deal with conflicts, how much you don't sacrifice who and what you are in order to just deal with some kind of a problem. And also Jupiter has to do with having good counsel or good advice. And Jupiter also has to do with an optimistic attitude towards things. So this particular Jupiter is in Venus's Dracon, and it's usually not friendly with Venus, but Venus is at a reasonable distance from it in this particular chart, so it turns out to have neutral dignity here. So it says you're trying to attack like a battle-ready warrior to punish. So it's like this Jupiter has a sense of warrior sense to it. It's like armored with its integrity, and they like to punish people who don't have integrity, which is fine, but it's mid dignity. So it's not really a very successful thing that they do, nor is it really a big problem point. Finally, let's look at some planets that are not in aggressive Dracons. Let's look at planets that are in prey animal Dracons. Rahu's relevance to Dracon, Rahu's way that it acts in conflict, is summarized by the keyword provocation. That's what Rahu does in conflict. It basically is the taunter. So here it says exaggeration, provocation, overreaction to taunts, disregard for normative behavior. It has a negative slant because Rahu is in a low dignity due to it being in a bitter enemy's division. It doesn't like Jupiter, and it's not at a good distance from Jupiter, and it's in Jupiter's Dracon. Therefore, its basic symbolism of provocation are causes of problems for this person when they're involved in conflict. How will that play out? They'll exaggerate the problem unnecessarily. They'll over-provoke the enemy. And they'll overreact to the taunts. So they easily fall victim to like being trapped, pulled into some kind of situation that they didn't really want to get pulled into. And then also Rahu has disregard for normal behavior. So it's like not really noticing that you're going to an extreme. The report further says it's most problematic when trying to defend and counterattack to cause regret in aggressors. So when trying to defend and counterattack, the reason for that statement is that this is a prey Dracona. Causing regret in aggressors is the way that a prey Dracon works if that is a retaliative or retributional Dracon, as is the case for this Rahu. If we look at more planets in the defensive Dracons, this whole format of interpretation will become still more clear. So let's look at the rest of them. K2 is also in a prey Dracon, and is also in a retributional prey Dracon. K2's basic quality in D3 is inscrutability. This is the role that K2 plays in conflict. Inscrutability meaning the opponent cannot figure you out. So it says being beyond comprehension, depth, unpredictability, stealth, subterfuge, and subtlety. And this is a positive kind of thing because this K2 is in a best friends Dracon, so it has high dignity. So one thing that really works for this person in conflict is the fact that their K2 is strong in conflicts. It means people can't really pin you down. People can't really figure out where you are. People can't really understand what you're doing and saying until it's too late. Now it says it's best used to defend and counterattack to cause regret in aggressors. So again, defend and counterattack is just because it's a prey Dracon. And to cause regret in aggressors is again because it's a retributive prey Dracon. So this person's K2 really activates when somebody has done something offensive to the native, and then the person's depth and subtlety makes it very difficult for the aggressor to evade the counterattack. Final example, the only planet left in this example chart is the moon. So the moon's basic nature in Dracana is flexibility. This is what moon means in terms of combat. Liquidity, flexibility. So to flesh this out a little bit more, the report says, understanding of psychology, the ability to shift, reposition, and adjust dynamically. So the flexibility thing is really the ability to shift, the ability to adjust, the ability to reposition, not being stuck too much in one rigid spot. That's the moon's quality in combat. And the reason how it knows, how to reposition and shift is because of how it has an intuition for psychology and emotion. So this particular moon does this very well because it has a high dignity. It's in its best friend's Dracana. So this particular person really has a good understanding of psychology when it comes to conflicts, the psychology of conflicts. And therefore they're able to adjust their sort of reactions to evoke the desired emotional responses in the opponent. It says that this tactic is best used to defend and counterattack because it's a prey Dracan, to cause regret in aggressors. It's causing regret in the aggressor because it is a retributional Dracan. It's causing regret in the aggressor because it's a retributional prey Dracan. So hopefully all of these examples have really helped you get a feeling for how to interpret planets in these specific symbolisms of the Dracan. To see exactly how I interpret this for your chart, go to my website. I'll put a link to it in the description below. Go to the reading section and order the subdivisions module. That will give you not only the interpretations for your Dracan, but for all of your 10 zodiacal and non-zodiacal subdivisions. Thank you so much for watching. This has been an extended series really on the Dracan. We've published maybe 4 or 5 videos on it. I have a playlist for it. I'll put that link in the description too. Check out my channel page for information and videos about all the other zodiac subdivisions, and make sure you subscribe, get notifications, and look out for those notifications because we still have several more subdivisions yet to cover.